Hello, everybody, and welcome to Grimwit with Dimwits. I'm T.
And I'm Blondie.
Can you believe the weather we're having today? Isn't it wild?
It's nuts. I'm just having to go swim to my car.
Right. We're under a flood warning over here, are you guys?
Yep.
Very scary. I mean, first we're dry as can be. Now all of a sudden it's like, too much.
Slow your roll.
Exactly. Dole it out a little bit at a time, please.
What is it, all or nothing? Story of my life.
Right. All right, here we go with another current events 0 cents.
Yay.
Woohoo! In Washington County, deputies responded to a call where an unknown man was found in somebody's kitchen at 4:48 a.m.
Okay, wait a minute. In somebody's kitchen?
Well, I'm not going to give their name.
Okay.
These people have been through enough. Apparently, the homeowners walked into their kitchen and saw this guy sleeping on the floor with several of their personal items gathered up into his arms. When police showed up, the burglar had apparently been hard at work burglarizing the second home of the night and just fell asleep. He had stolen goods from this home and his last victim's home when he was discovered. So he was woken up and immediately arrested. So, word to the wise, if you're going to be a cat burglar and you want to commit the perfect crime, you should probably cat nap before heading to work.
Man. I think catnap is an understatement.
Something. This guy's trying to pull doubles all night. It's like, nope, not going to work out for you, buddy.
And he has all the goods cradled in his arms while he snoozes peacefully. And on the kitchen floor. I mean, if you're going to pass out, why wouldn't you pass out on the couch?
He just did his cat duty and curled up with all his belongings and snoozed for a little while.
Wow. Okay. Washington County. There you go.
Yeah, not the brightest star, that's for sure. So, speaking of craziness, what story do you have for us?
I'm going to do a story about Phil Hartman.
Oh, I love him.
Well, I was watching some old SNL shows and saw Phil Hartman, and then I remembered what happened to him, but also realized, other than the end result, I didn't really know much about his life or who he really was.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about him either, but he seemed like he was, cool, calm, and collected. A nice guy.
Right? He just seemed happy-go-lucky.
Yep.
So Phil Hartman was a Canadian and moved to the U.S. with his family when he was 10 years old. They moved around somewhat to finally end up in California. California suited Phil because he loved surfing and spent many years on the waves. When I was in my teens, I used to be obsessed with surfers and surfing. I never really thought of Phil Hartman being out there getting barreled. And every time I see his picture, it's with that iconic smile of his and that voice he had.
Maybe it's because we saw him older, but I too can't imagine him hanging 10.
I can't either. So in school, he was voted class clown. You see the writing on the wall is like already there. Phil attended California State University, where he majored in graphic design. He was very good at it and started his own business. He designed over 40 album covers for a variety of bands. It was during this time that Phil discovered something that truly lit him up, which was comedy. I thought it was interesting that he designed album covers. The ones I recognize are Steely Dan, Poco, and Crosby, Stills and Nash. Remember those?
I don't know who Poco is, but yeah, I remember the other two. And wow, what a cool job. I loved album covers.
By 1975, he took some evening comedy classes with a little improv troupe called the Groundlings. One night, while sitting in the audience, he couldn't help himself. He hopped up on stage mid-show, and he lit up. People said the minute he hit the stage, it was like flipping a switch. He spent the next few years sharpening his skills, and in true Hartman fashion, paid his dues not just in laughs, but by redesigning the group's logo and merchandise. By 1979, he wasn't just part of the crowd. He was one of the Groundlings stars. Another member of the Groundlings was a man named Paul Reubens, also known as Pee Wee Herman. Do you hear the laugh? Phil Hartman and Paul Reubens worked together on the Pee Wee Herman stage show. Phil was a co-writer and major character, But it was at this time that Phil actually considered quitting acting due to the lack of job opportunities. That was until 1985, when the Pee Wee Herman stage show became a movie and TV series. It was great for Paul Reubens, since he was the center of the show.
I don't know why, but in my brain, those two do not fit together.
I'll be realistic. Does anybody fit together with Paul Reubens?
I doubt it.
Phil co-wrote Pee-wee's Big Adventure and even snuck into the film with a cameo as a reporter. The following year, he kept busy with small roles in Jumping Jack Flash and Three Amigos, but also did voiceovers in animated shows, and he showed just how versatile he really was. I loved Jumping Jack Flash.
I know I saw it because it was a big movie, but I can't remember what it was about at all.
It was that one with Whoopi Goldberg. She's a computer operator at an international bank, and she gets this message from someone named Jack, who turns out to be in British intelligence and is trapped in Eastern Europe, and she had to take the clues and help him plan his exit, so he enlisted her. Does that ring any bells?
Not really. That's a lot of info.
Well, I remember Phil Hartman in it.
That's all you had to say.
But while his career was picking up speed, his personal life was hitting a rocky road. Phil was going through his second divorce, trying to balance work of new opportunities on screen and home life. At the same time, in 1986, in Los Angeles, California, there was a 28-year-old girl named Brynn Omdahl that had just signed a long-term modeling contract with Catalina Swimwear. Brynn Omdahl was born Vicky Jo Omdahl in 1958 in Thief River Falls, Minnesota. Your assumption would be right that Thief River Falls is a small town. Vicky Jo was a stunning young girl, and like a lot of small-town girls, she had big dreams.
That's such an unusual name for a small town.
I giggled when I first read it, and then I started thinking, who comes up with this?
Yeah, I mean, who puts the word thief into the name of a city? It's bizarre.
She started out in Minneapolis, diving into a modeling career that kept her busy with commercials and print ads, more than enough to pay bills and keep life moving. But before long, the pull of something bigger was calling, and she set her sights on Hollywood. She wanted in on the scene, the bright lights, the red carpets, and the buzz of the big city.
AKA the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, baby.
Did you just stereotype Hollywood?
It wasn't me. They did it to themselves.
In true Hollywood fashion, she even reinvented herself with a new name, Brynn. But when this Barbie lookalike arrived in California, she quickly discovered the game had changed. Back in Minneapolis, she stood out, but in Los Angeles, she was just one of countless blondes chasing the same dream. Her first few years in Los Angeles, she didn't do much and only booked a few shoots. That was until she got the Catalina Swimwear job. Life was falling into place for Brynn, and things were looking pretty good. So when friends suggested a blind date, she decided, I'll give it a shot. The man's name? Phil Hartman. From the start, there was a spark. They were instantly taken with each other. Phil found himself regaining some of the confidence he'd lost, while Brynn was thrilled to be swept up by someone so full of charm and excitement. He was 38, feeling defeated, getting another divorce, and here comes this 28-year-old swimsuit model. Talk about big confidence booster.
Men, they're such simple creatures, aren't they?
Doesn't take much. By the end of 1986, Phil had been recommended to the producers of a little show called Saturday Night Live, or SNL, by his friends Penny Marshall, John Lovitz, and Paul Reubens. So Phil auditioned and got the break of a lifetime, receiving one of the coveted spots on the show. However, this could potentially break him and his new love, Brynn, up, since the show was filmed in New York. Phil asked her to come with him, which was a tough decision for her, since she had just got her footing in Los Angeles and with Catalina Swimwear. At the end of the day, she decided to give up her career in LA and support Phil in New York. I'm assuming she could have modeled in New York, but I wondered how many girls were lined up to take her place for that Catalina contract.
I'm sure there were lots.
Phil started on the new show and kicked off what would become an 8-year run on Saturday Night Live. He wasn't just another cast member, he was everywhere. Besides writing, he showed up in nearly every sketch, working his way into whatever role was needed. His castmates even gave him the nickname, The Glue. It was their way of saying that he held the show together because of his incredible range and versatility. Over his 8 years on the show, he brought more than 70 different characters to life. Some were his own quirky creations like Eugene the anal retentive chef or the unforgettable unfrozen caveman lawyer. Others were spot-on impressions of big names, everyone from Frank Sinatra and Ronald Reagan to Charlton Heston, Michael Caine, and even Barbara Bush.
I love that.
I'm going to have to find the Barbara Bush sketch. That one sounds hysterical. But it was his take on Bill Clinton that really stuck, earning him a reputation as one of the best impressionists in the business.
He, in my opinion, was the best Bill Clinton and a stinking hilarious Frank Sinatra. He really over-exaggerated the voice. It was so good.
He did his job well. Life was hectic for Phil, but in the best way possible, of course. Things were going so well that in 1987, he and Brynn decided to marry, starting what felt like the perfect new chapter. Just a year later, they welcomed their first child, a son named Sean, and 4 years later, their daughter Bergen joined the family.
So did he only know her for 1 year before they got married?
Yes, ma'am.
Jeez.
For a while, everything seemed picture perfect. Phil was thriving in his career, and at home he had the family he'd always dreamed of. Brynn was a great mother, and Phil was the doting father, always sharing stories of them. Watching them grow up had become a priority in his life. How come when everything seems to be perfect, you just know in some way it's not going to last?
Well, aren't you little Miss Debbie Downer?
Well, I'm just going along with the whole theme of our show.
That's not everybody's life, though.
As much as Phil loved the work, the constant pace of SNL began to wear on him. Week after week, the late nights and endless rehearsals started to feel less excitement and more like a grind, eating up nearly all of his time. So in 1994, he said goodbye to Saturday Night Live. Phil told the Los Angeles Times, quote, "I wanted to do SNL because I wanted to get the exposure that would give me box office credibility so I could write movies for myself," end quote. Phil's heart belonged to Brynn and his kids, so in an effort to spend more time with them, they all picked up and moved back to Southern California. In 1995, Phil had taken a role in a sitcom called News Radio, where he portrayed a radio news anchor named Bill McNeil. He once joked that he based McNeil on himself, with any ethics or character taken away. At least he recognized. Phil and his family seemed to be living the dream. He had a happy marriage, 2 children, a booming Hollywood career, and all the power and success that came with it. From the outside, life looked golden, like it couldn't possibly get any better. But behind closed doors, it was a different story.
I'm aware, that there's a lot of people doing this happy/miserable double life thing. And who exactly are they pretending for? This makes no sense. It's just too much work for me.
I would imagine being in the public eye is part of their persona and image that they have to keep up.
Yeah, but you don't have to keep it up. I mean, if there's a problem, you either fix the problem or you walk away.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but probably didn't want to break up his family.
I get it.
In public, Phil was the life of the party, outgoing, charming, always smiling, always quick to shower Brynn with affection. He gave the impression of a man who had it all together. At home, though, he was far more guarded. In private, Phil could be gruff, withdrawn, and emotionally distant. He kept walls up, even with the people closest to him, including Brynn. Phil became more and more emotionally unavailable and began to ignore Brynn. The more Phil withdrew, the more insecure Brynn became. And for someone who was a former model, this was hard for her. Brynn was beginning to feel uneasy, even unsafe in her own marriage. The cracks that had once been easy to overlook were now harder to ignore. What made it worse was the nagging sense of loss. She had sacrificed so much to follow Phil and support his dream. That must have been tough, but she knew what she was getting into from day one.
I don't agree. I feel like they barely knew each other, and I don't know why she was feeling unsafe. Maybe it was just all in her head, but this was high risk from the start.
I agree it was high risk from the start, And you're right, maybe they didn't know each other that well. But I mean, at this point, you're talking years that they've been together.
Yeah, I get it. But I mean, it sounds like most of that time they didn't really know each other and they made a lot of changes within themselves. So, I mean, how does she figure that, she's going to be his number one priority when he's trying to keep her happy and keep his family fed?
Oh, I get it. While she originally moved to New York with Phil to support him, she still had her own dreams. She wanted success in show business, the same dream that Phil had. Brynn longed to make a name for herself. While Phil was busy on set, she spent her days chasing auditions, hoping to get noticed and carve out her own place in the spotlight. She wanted to be more than just Phil Hartman's wife. She wanted to be seen for who she was. She began writing and even worked with a well-known writer working on her screenplay. I think she was hoping that being married to a successful SNL star would help pave her way, that Phil would help pave her way. But what actually happened was that he was too busy. He had SNL, movies, voiceovers, guest shots, and even more offers than he could imagine. He was the star, and Brynn was off to the side, which she hated. Internally, Brynn became jealous and resentful of Phil. The higher he climbed, the worse it got. He wasn't helping her with what she really wanted, which was to be a star. Brynn often confided in friends about her frustrations. She complained that Phil wouldn't lift a finger to help break her into the business, leaving her stuck in a role she never wanted, that of a housewife. And she made it clear being just a housewife wasn't the life she wanted for herself.
That's a tough one. She's entitled to her dreams, but there was no guarantee she was going to be famous anyway. And now she had kids. That should have been her first priority, in my opinion.
I think so too. I think she got swept up with everything.
She thought she could ride his coattails, but that doesn't work out. I mean, you got to do it on your own. And I don't think she was talented or gifted enough to make it happen, obviously.
Yeah, you're right. I think she was hoping, I married this star. Why isn't he pushing me and pushing me going forward and helping me with my career?
I mean, what a sense of entitlement for her to think not only does he have to work on his career to try to remain in the spotlight, he's supposed to push her into the spotlight as well. I mean, come on, Brynn. Very selfish.
Brynn started lashing out. She would show up at the set and start fighting with him. It even got to the point that if she timed it just right, she could mess with his head and affect his performance. Remember, SNL is recorded live, so that could be very detrimental. So when he left SNL in 1994, everyone close to him secretly realized their marriage was crumbling. I kind of wonder if that was another reason he left SNL and they moved in an effort to save his family. It's amazing how people can show a facade in public and very differently in private.
Famous or not, lots of people play this sad little game.
Even after the family moved back to California, nothing really changed. In fact, things only seemed to get worse. Brynn's 40th birthday drew near. She had always been fixated on youth, staying young and beautiful forever. She tried everything she could to turn back the clock, but surgery and quick fixes could only go so far. When the mirror didn't reflect what she wanted to see, the weight of it all pushed her into a deep depression, one that eventually led her back to some old, destructive habits. I would love to turn back time. The problem is there's just too many places and time I want to land on. But I think early 2000s were my fave.
Those were good times. And how sad that she wasn't even 40 yet, and she was already doing stuff to try to look younger. She was still young.
When she first arrived in Hollywood, drugs were everywhere and so accessible. She got caught up in the drug and alcohol scene. Luckily, it was just a phase, and she got sober. But with all her feelings of jealousy, depression, and resentment, she started drinking again, and cocaine use soon followed. A good friend of Brynn's said that when she used cocaine, that's when the ugly part came out. Wonder what she meant by ugly part.
It sounds like she meant that Brynn was capable of ugly things, and obviously she was. I'm not liking Brynn at all right now. She's over the top self-focused.
You don't want to be high and drunk with your children around.
And for what reason? Because you're having a tantrum that you're not famous?
This wasn't good for Phil or the family. She was almost a Jekyll and Hyde. 1 minute strong in her sobriety, And then, under the influence of whatever, she was out of control. The next 4 years, Brynn went in and out of rehabs and sought help for her depression with psychiatrists. Nothing seemed to help, and over time, Brynn slipped deep into a full-blown addiction. Then in April 1998, doctors prescribed her Zoloft. It's an antidepressant meant to steady her moods and help her feel more like herself again.
Geez, what a mess she is.
I mean, to go back 4 times, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Spring came around, and Phil was running out of patience. He didn't want to break up the family, but he would if he had to. So in the beginning of May 1998, Phil gave Brynn an ultimatum. Get sober, or he was leaving with the kids.
Really, he had no choice. Someone had to protect those kids.
That was his main priority at this point. I think Brynn was kind of on the back burner.
Yeah, those kids had to be somebody's priority, and I'm glad he put them first.
Phil wanted his kids to grow up in an environment that was as normal as possible. Being in the show business atmosphere was one thing, but to have a mother that was either always under the influence of something or in rehab was quite another. On May 27th, Phil had spent the evening at the airplane hangar that he rented where he kept his collection of planes and exotic cars. Brynn had gone out to dinner with a producer friend, Christine, who later remembered Brynn as being in a good frame of mind. But when Brynn returned home, the mood shifted. She and Phil got into a heated argument, one of many. They had become way too common. Eventually, Phil went to bed. Frustrated, Brynn called her ex-boyfriend Ron and asked if she could come over to talk. She showed up at Ron's at around 10 p.m. Phil knew about Ron, and he was fine with Brynn just talking to him. He was very progressive.
To me, it sounds like he was hoping she'd run off with him. Problem solved.
Brynn began opening up to Ron, venting about her marriage and how Phil never seemed to pay attention to her. Ron tried to lighten the mood, sharing a few beers and keeping the conversation easy. But as the night wore on, Brynn's tone shifted. The joking faded, replaced with something heavier, more serious, which was unusual for her. At one point, she even turned to him and asked quietly, "Do you believe in God?" She asked him if he believed in God. Around midnight, Brynn decided it was time to head home. Ron later recalled that she seemed steady when she left. Not overly emotional, not intoxicated, just normal. Nothing to suggest that the night was about to take a dark turn. A dark turn was exactly what happened around 3:30 in the morning. Ron's phone rings, and it's Brynn. She's hysterical and asks to come over. Ron told her it was late and to go back to sleep. About 20 minutes later, there was a knock on Ron's door. To his surprise, it was Brynn again, but this time, everything was different. She was extremely drunk, barely able to stand, her words slurred and incoherent. Ron struggled to understand her until suddenly she blurted out the words, "I killed Phil." So first thing, if she could barely stand, it was lucky she didn't hit anyone or anything driving to Ron's. And let's talk about the 3-letter-word bombshell she dropped. I know you or I would say, okay, what do you need? A shovel, trash bags, a tree shedder? But I'm not sure they had that kind of relationship.
Doesn't sound like it, but you know that's right. A wood chipper is way too messy, though. I don't want to be cleaning up all night. Mama needs her rest. We'd go mafia style and take care of that situation with a vat of sulfuric acid. You're welcome, baby girl.
You've watched way too many crime shows.
She knows what she's doing.
Not believing her because she was out of her mind drunk. I think he said she was as high as a kite until she pulled out a gun from her purse. He was shocked, but the first thing that came to mind was the gun. He tried to sober her up and spent the next 2 hours giving her coffee. At 6 a.m., they went back over to Brynn's house. Ron confessed he didn't expect to find Phil dead. He just wasn't sure if she was babbling incoherently or if she was actually serious. They walked through the house by the kids' rooms, who were asleep next to the master bedroom. They opened the door where Phil is in bed and obviously dead. Brynn shrieks hysterically when she sees Phil. I guess she was surprised that it was true, that she really was that whacked out of her head, that she wasn't sure if she killed him or not. I can't fathom being that altered and not remember killing someone.
This is why Mama don't like to drink and has never done drugs.
Ron stepped out of the bedroom to call 911, and when he does, Brynn locked herself in the room with Phil. She began calling friends and family, telling them that she shot Phil, trying to make it real, trying to figure out how that could have happened. As sirens approached the house, the reality had sunken in. She was talking to her sister and asking her to take care of her kids. The children were jolted awake by the sound of their mother screaming. As Ron hurried to the front door to let the police inside, he grabbed 9-year-old Sean and rushed him to safety. Once officers entered the house, they discovered 6-year-old Bergen, terrified and cowering in the corner of her closet. Those poor kids.
Yeah.
The police cordoned off the area surrounding the house. Media started to arrive. The negotiation team arrived, and they were able to get Brynn on her cell phone. The goal was to keep her talking and keep her from hurting herself. After several tense minutes of trying to talk her down and get her to unlock the door, she hangs up on them. Before they can rush in, they hear another shot fired. When police forced their way into the master bedroom, they were met with a devastating scene. Phil lay on the bed, fatally shot, once between the eyes, once in the throat, and once in the chest. Beside him was Brynn, a gun still clutched in her hand, with a fatal wound to her right eye. Both were dead. When I watched the show, I wondered what happened between midnight and 3 a.m. She obviously went home, but what actually transpired is just a speculation. That they possibly got into another argument, she began to drink and do more drugs, then snapped. It's just a speculation.
Yeah, I mean, it could have even gone that she got home and was just enraged and shot him while he was sleeping.
Could be.
I didn't know she shot him that many times, though. She meant business.
I didn't know she shot him that many times either. They were all pretty much kill shots.
Yep.
Brynn never told anyone what caused her to kill Phil, but the police conclusion was that Brynn didn't set out to kill him. Instead, it seemed to be a result of rage, anger, and clouded judgment spiraling out of control. What was certain was that Brynn wasn't thinking clearly that night. Her toxicology report showed that she was under the influence of cocaine, marijuana, alcohol, and was still taking antidepressants. The horrible tragedy was definitely a drug-fueled rage. Both Phil and Brynn kept guns in the house. At night, Brynn often picked fights before bed, so Phil developed a quiet routine of his own. He would pretend to be asleep, hoping to avoid her anger and manic behavior. So that's why my husband always goes to bed before me. And here I thought it was because he was an early riser and I'm a late nighter.
Nope, he's just straight up avoiding you. Get a clue, sister.
Wow. Tell me how you really feel.
I'm just saying, some things are obvious.
Brynn used her own gun to kill herself. She probably couldn't live with the guilt of what she had done. After the police closed the case as a murder-suicide, that's when the press went into overdrive. They sensationalized stories of Brynn's drug and alcohol abuse, and how could she take the life of the beloved comedian? She was made out to be a monster. I'm not trying to make excuses, but she did try to get help. But I think giving a drug addict more drugs without working through her depression mentally probably didn't help. Then I imagine the ultimatum just kind of pushed her over the edge.
Yeah, if she'd never been violent like this before, nobody could have known she was capable of this. And he wasn't just a beloved comedian to her. He was, in her mind, the guy that was ruining her life, hopes, and dreams. It's very distorted and truly tragic.
I didn't even think about that she didn't see him the way everybody else saw him.
No.
Brynn's family was having a really hard time believing that she could have done this. She was a loving and smart woman, not a monster. 1 year later, in May 1999, the Omdahl family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, who they believed was responsible. I found it interesting that they didn't file a lawsuit against the psychiatrist. At least I didn't find anything.
I find it interesting that they're trying to make money off of this in any fashion. I mean, Brynn was always very selfish and self-centered and felt very entitled to this career that never was meant to be. So, I don't know. She's a chip off the old block for sure.
Well, I wonder how much the family knew, how much she resented him, how much she told the family about their relationship.
Well, and it was all self-fueled, though. I mean, he was a famous guy making a living for her and her kids, and that still wasn't enough for her. She wanted to be him is what she wanted. And the sucky part is she's now famous after doing this.
Famous for the wrong reasons.
Yep.
Her family questioned whether the tragedy had been fueled by more than just rage. Their claim was that the marketing of Zoloft downplayed its dangerous side effects, severe depression, suicidal thoughts, and as of new findings suggested even violent behavior. Brynn had only started the prescription a month before the night she killed Phil and herself. The autopsy revealed high levels of the drug in her system, and for her family, that was enough to believe she hadn't been fully responsible, that she was, in a way, innocent of Phil's murder.
Wow, they just saw it the way they wanted to see it, no matter what. But with that way of thinking, it could have been any drug then. Don't they all come with that commercial warning of the man talking super fast? And it always ends with, and suicidal thoughts are not uncommon. You know that one?
I do. And I don't remember if we got all those papers with the side effects with the prescription, because this was almost 30 years ago. But definitely now they are all over the commercials, and you get that ream of paper with your prescription telling you about all the side effects.
Nobody's going to read it. Just like they don't want you to hear the guy who's talking really fast. You can't understand him. They know nobody's going to read that crap.
The irony is sometimes I do read it.
Oh, God. Get a life, girl.
You just never know. I think hers or any family doesn't want to believe their child could commit such an act and want to blame someone else. Pfizer denied responsibility and said that the toxicology also showed that she was under the influence of drugs and alcohol, that you're not supposed to drink or do drugs while under medication because it changes the medication and its side effects. Pfizer also said there was plenty of evidence suggesting their marriage was already on a collision course, Zoloft or not. Friends and family had seen and heard the explosive fights, the constant escalation, the jealousy and resentment that simmered beneath the surface. Add in Brynn's struggles with drug and alcohol, it became a volatile mix, a recipe for disaster that seemed destined to end in tragedy. Ultimately, Pfizer chose to settle the case out of court for an undisclosed amount. It wasn't so much an admission of guilt as it was an attempt at damage control and avoid negative publicity. But no matter what effect the case may have had on Pfizer's reputation, it paled in comparison to the real loss, the untimely death at 49 of someone who was so deeply loved.
Yeah, he was a huge loss in the entertainment industry. I can only imagine what he would have went on to do.
He was all over the place. Phil Hartman's legacy lives on. He starred in 29 movies and was in 53 TV shows, either as himself or as a voiceover. On news radio, the writers explained Phil's absence by saying his character had suffered a fatal heart attack. To help carry the show through its final season, his close friend and former SNL castmate, John Lovitz, stepped in.
I think it's ironic that they said he died of a fatal heart attack when really his death had to do with a broken heart.
Look at you being existential. Even in death, Phil's legacy lived on. He earned an Emmy nomination for News Radio the following year and was honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a lasting tribute to his remarkable body of work. That's just amazing.
That star was deserved for his talent alone. I'm glad that they did that for him.
Me too. Phil and Brynn's children, Sean and Bergen, were raised by Brynn's sister in Wisconsin. They were the sole heirs to the estate and the Pfizer settlement. Phil's ashes were scattered off Catalina Island. He had always been a beach guy, a surfer at heart, and the ocean seemed like a fitting tribute. According to their will, Brynn's ashes were laid to rest alongside his. For better or worse, through all the highs and lows, they had been bound together in life, and in the end, they remained bound together in death.
Wow. I'm actually shocked his family allowed their ashes to be commingled. What a sad ending to all that potential, both his and hers.
It is an interesting quandary because it was in their will, so they honored that, but I'm sure Phil wasn't thinking at the time that Brynn would shoot him when they made the will out. So that's the story of Phil Hartman.
That's crazy. I mean, I heard some of this, but definitely not all those details. I learned a lot today, and it's all very sad.
It's happy and sad because you know he had a good life, And he did get, for the most part, what he wanted out of it. I'm sure he would have liked it to be longer, but he was doing what he loved.
And it's almost like him doing what he loved is what got him killed. The more famous he was, the more hateful she became.
Yeah.
Thanks, Blondie, for that story. All right, everybody. Don't forget to have fun, take care, and remember to let your grimaginations run wild. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye. We want to thank you for spending a little time with us. We truly appreciate it. If you'd like to send in your creepy little grim bits, we'd love to hear your personal stories, eerie interests, or strange suggestions. And don't be shy. We love our listeners, and we're excited to hear from you. Email us at grimwitwithdimwits@gmail.com.
Stay connected and follow Grimwit with Dimwits on Instagram, X, Facebook, and YouTube. Also, check out our website for more spooky fun at, you guessed it, Grimwit with Dimwits. We'd also really appreciate it if you take a moment to rate and review the show. Those 5-star ratings go a long way. Until then, join us again as we dive deep into the strange and unusual things we just can't wrap our skulls around.